Now that our water works, it's time to smooth it out. We're going to make it so that our toggle flood method will slowly rise or lower the water depending on if the flood is being enabled or disabled. We already have a coroutine here, so we're just going to need to add in a while loop and smooth out this movement. So instead of just snapping to the new position, we'll move over time. This should be a relatively easy problem to solve, but since we're going to go in two directions, it's going to get slightly more complicated. The first thing that I want to do is just cache this initial position here, the position that we're getting for the Y, because I want to be able to lerp from that position to my target position. And if I don't cache it and I keep moving my Y position, then that value is going to change and I won't be able to do my lerp properly. So I'm going to cut this and call this initial water Y. I'll add a variable up above, a float initial water Y, or not W, equals transform.position.Y. I'm going to copy that and replace the other instance where I'm grabbing that Y position. And then I'm going to change this to be a float instead of a var so that the names and the parameter lengths match up. Actually, I don't need an underscore here. I don't know why I added one. So I'm going to remove that. It's just out of habit. I automatically started typing an underscore. So now I've got my initial Y and my target Y. And what I want to do is loop over them, or loop for a certain amount of time and move from that initial Y to the target. So we're going to add a couple of fields. First, we'll add a float for our duration, for how long we want it to take to loop. I'm going to make that 1 second, so just do a 1F. And then we'll add a float for our elapsed time. So call this elapsed, ELAP. SED, there we go, time, and we'll set that to 0. We'll add a while loop. Look at that. It's going to automatically auto-complete that for me. And while elapsed time is less than the duration, we want to, well, of course, increment the elapsed time. And then we want to move our object towards that new Y position. So let's take this vector 3 part of line 186. I'm going to hit shift and end to go to the end of the line, control C to copy it. And up here on line 84, I'm going to say var destination equals and paste. So this is going to give us our destination for where we want to go. Now, I don't want to necessarily go directly to that target Y, so I need to figure out my Y value for this current frame. We're going to start it off at the initial Y and then move towards that target Y. So let's create another float. We'll say float Y equals, and here we're going to use the lerp method. So we use mathf.lerp, which is going to interpolate between our start value and our ending value. We'll give it the starting Y, our initial water Y, and then we'll give it our target water Y. So this is the initial Y value and the target, or the ending Y value. So imagine this is going to be, if we jump into Unity, we've got this Y at negative 5.5. So it's going to go from that to like a negative 4.5. So it's going to raise up. So let's go back into the code. And then here we need to give it our elapsed, but I don't want to use elapsed time. So if I use just that elapsed time like it recommended, then what we're going to end up with is we won't be able to do durations greater than 1, because it's going to always do it at 1 and it's going to ignore our duration completely. So what we need to do instead is figure out a progress. So we'll add another variable up above, float progress, and it's going to be equal to our elapsed time divided by our duration. And then we'll put in our progress right here. Finally, we'll set our destination's Y value to that Y. Well, actually, we'll add a semicolon first. Then we'll set our destination's Y value to that new Y that we've calculated, and then move our object to that destination. So we'll say water.transform.position. Let's just copy that. Paste equals destination. Now, of course, you could shorten this down into less lines, but I feel like having it split out makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on. The last thing I'm going to do here is just delete line 189 that snaps it to the target position. I don't necessarily need that, so I'm just going to take it out. Although you could leave it in if you want to make sure that it ends up at that position at the end, but it's going to end up at that position at the end either way. So I don't necessarily need it. I'll just delete it because it's extra code that's not really going to make a difference. All right, we also want to move this water because our water is a public field that's down here at the bottom, not a serialized field. So I'm going to cut it, delete that extra space, go up to the top, and let's add in a serialized field for our water. So add water, we'll add the serialized field attribute, save, and do a quick build. Oh, before I can build, I've got to add a semicolon to the end of that line. Let's do one more build, and that should be a successful one. Build succeeded, and we'll go back to Unity. So now we'll play and watch what happens when we set it to half health. Well, it instantly popped back up. If I set it to kill, it instantly pops back down. So let's take a look at the code one more time and see if we can figure out what's going on. What I want you to do now is just evaluate this code. Look at the toggle flood and see if you can figure out where the issue is. Why is it not smoothly moving up? Why is it snapping into position? Go ahead and evaluate this code for a minute or two or however long it takes, and then continue along and we'll dive into the solution. All right, hopefully you found the problem already. It's actually a really simple one. We're in this while loop and we're running through elapsed, modifying our elapsed code or elapsed time, incrementing it by time.delta time, continuing on the progress, moving our y up, figuring out that destination and then moving, and then we continue on and do the same thing again and again and again. And once we're done, we wait for a frame. See the problem now? Well, the problem is pretty simple. We just need to wait for a frame after each movement. We're doing all of this movement in one frame, in one go, and then it's just snapping our object up. We've got to move that yield return null right here so that we can let a frame complete and pass before we just run through this loop. This happens all the time in coroutines with while loops. You forget that yield, and usually you'll end up with a crash or something else if it goes on indefinitely, but luckily this one has a time limit of 1 second, so it kind of ends quickly and can't crash it for us. All right, now with that in, we should be able to jump back into Unity and see our water move smoothly. All right, here's our water. Let's go jump in it. In fact, let's go stand on the platform here and set our character to half health, or our B to half health. And okay, now I'm floating. You can see that the ground is still a little bit high here. I'm still kind of able to touch it, and I don't really want to move it. Instead, I think that the best solution here in this case, let's go look at it in the scene view here. We've got this ground piece that's just kind of right down here below. It's not that one. Let's see if I can find it. We'll go select the ground piece real quick and then show the solution. So we got to go find it in the environment. Here, let's just turn off the water. Easy way to do this. Go select that object. And right here, there it is. This is the grass that I'm worried about. Oh, I've already moved it to my B encounter. So make sure that you move your grass mid underneath your B encounter here. It looks like mine right now is named grass mid 6. Let's modify it real quick. So this is the grass that's that blank platform. Let's call this a flood ground platform. And then let's go make our collider for this object turn off when our flood waters rise and turn back on when our flood waters go down. To do that, we'll go back into our B encounter and we're just going to add a reference to that collider, to the flood ground platform. I think instead of typing out the reference, though, just do it right here at the beginning or the end of toggle flood. I'll say underscore flood ground platform. Let's call it flood ground collider. Dot enabled equals enable flood. And then we want it to actually not be enable flood. We want it to be the opposite of enable flood, so we'll add a not sign. I'm going to add a reference for our ground collider. Let's go duplicate water, put in the name, floor ground collider, and change this to collider 2D. 2D, there we go. Got no S, not 2Ds, it's just 2D. All right, now I should be able to, build once I put the D at the end of enabled. All right. Back in Unity, we'll assign that platform here so we can turn the collider off, save, and let's go try it out. All right, here we are. We'll jump over here to the platform. We'll set the B to half health. And now I am definitely floating around. See that it's going to get more difficult for me to move. Hitting my head on some lasers. And I think things are looking pretty good. Let's say that the B died. We'll set the B to kill. And the water goes back down. We don't turn the collider back on, though. Oh, actually, we do turn the collider back on, but check this out. Look at the platform real quick and tell me if you see anything obvious that stands out that could be the issue. If you see right here, the platform got set to the dead layer, so our character can't collide with it. Also, I can't jump anymore because it's not detecting that I'm in the water because I kind of fell in when it was dropping down. So we're going to make two quick changes. The first one is a fix for the layer. So we don't want to be setting our layer to dead on all of the objects inside of our B encounter. We only want that to happen on things that are inside of this B root object. Let's go back to our B encounter and see the part where we set reset that layer. So you see here in take damage, when we die, let's add a little space there. When we die, we loop through all of the children components that have colliders, or all of the child colliders, and we set them all to that dead layer. But we don't want to do that for the B encounter. We just want to do that for the actual B object. So if we add an underscore B dot at the beginning there, that should fix the first issue. The second issue is not any harder to fix. When we're in our water and we're doing our raycasts down, a lot of the time our character's raycast is starting right down here and shooting into this object that has absolutely nothing. Because of how tall our character is and where the buoyancy is, there's a good chance that it shoots down into here and hits this collider on our water bottom that didn't have a collider. So I've just added a collider to it. Go add a box collider yourself, and then make sure that you check the auto tiling so that it fills out the entire area. Otherwise, you just end up with a little collider there in the middle, and it's not going to help. So let's press play and try it out. Here we are on the platform, and we'll set the B to half health again, and see that we're now floating around. I can run, I can jump. I should be able to keep jumping multiple times. It doesn't just reset. And once I kill that B, ooh, I'm in dead zone. Let's kill him. I should be able to still use colliders. I can land on platforms and everything else. All right, let's stop playing now and commit our changes. First, we'll save our scene that we smoothed water rising and falling for B encounter and check it in.